Hello, class. How are you today? Many of you have not seen me for the last class, but I hope you are ready for today's class, our second session, which we will discuss about theories in dynamic capabilities. All right, so let's move on to what are the theories in dynamic capabilities. Okay, last week, basically, I have explained to you about what is dynamic capabilities and what is expected for this class. Yeah. So today we are going to discuss about what are the theories behind dynamic capabilities, and I will also highlight to you some discussion about how we relate dynamic capabilities to ourselves. All right. So for today, 12 September, we will discuss about dynamic capabilities theories. All right. So in order for us to understand dynamic capabilities, it's also important for us to understand the parent theory. Yeah. The parent theory for dynamic capabilities is what we call as resource-based view. All right. And the competing perspective of resource-based view is industrial organization view. And then only we will move to dynamic capability theory, which is actually the extension of resource-based view. All right. Okay, let's move on. Now, to understand the theory, let us relate to ourselves. Now, what is our theory of happiness? I'm sure that everybody regard happiness in different perspective. All right. So, for example, I am happy if everybody around me is happy. Right. In some cases, people say that I'm happy when I help somebody. So there are a lot of things or a lot of triggering factor that will lead to happiness. Yeah. For example, if you look at this quote, yeah, happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. So some people believe that when your life, everything is synchronized, so you will be happy. All right. Happiness lies in the joy of achievement and the thrill of creative effort. All right. So for some people, okay, if they achieve something that they targeted, so, and this is based on what they are being, something that is a creative, based on creative endeavor, so it will make them happy. Okay. Now, if you look at Mother Teresa, for example, yeah, spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come to you without leaving happier. So love, yeah, giving love, sharing love to other people by helping other people is also relate you to happiness. All right. So in Islam, for example, happiness will never come to those who fail to appreciate the blessings they already have. All right. So if you are very appreciative, yeah, and you count your blessing, so you will always be happy. So there are so many perspectives on happiness. All right. Okay. So what is happiness in relation to dynamic capabilities? All right. So in business, we compete with each other. All right. We want to get the most market share. All right. So what companies would do, I mean, in terms of business, so happiness comes in the form of performance, right? So if you perform, so you are happy because you get more profit, you can fulfill the interests of the stakeholders better, and you will be fulfilling, or you will fulfill your KPIs, your key performance indicators, and you can share the profit with your stakeholders. You can give your employees better remuneration. So this will all trickle down. The happiness will be trickled down to everybody in the ecosystem, right? So basically for business, they want to outperform the others. They want what we call a sustainability in terms of survival in a very competitive landscape. Okay, so there are two broad explanations. Yeah, market power explanation and efficiency explanation. So for market power explanation, yeah, so the industry structure itself shapes a firm's conduct, which would define the performance. So for example, if for example the company is very restricted, yeah, in order for you to be involved in the industry, you need license. All right. So this kind of industry, so it would define the limitation it will restrict the it will restrict the entry of people into the system or into the industry, and therefore it will create a market power for the companies who have the license, and therefore they can use the license as a conduit or as a mechanism for them to leverage on it and create better performance. Another way of looking at performance, is efficiency. All right. So few firms are better at meeting customer requirements, and therefore they become more profitable than others. Wouldn't you wonder that why they have the same resources and even to a certain extent may have more resources, but they are not becoming better than the other companies? So I have 4 examples of companies here: DreamWorks, Tesla, Apple, and Google. And you will see that what is so unique, what are the uniqueness of this company that make their brand or their product becoming the brand name or becoming the generic of what people are looking for when they are talking about these products. Yeah, for example, when you talk about electric car, automatic car come into your mind is Tesla. When you talk about computers, you're talking about hardwares and softwares, automatically you're thinking about Apple, right? And when you're thinking about entertainment, children's entertainment, or what do you call it, animation and whatnot, automatically you think about DreamWorks. Okay, so how do this company can differentiate themselves from other companies? Even though some of you may argue, saying that, well, these companies have better resources, they have better financial capabilities, but these are all accumulation of years and years of performance. All right. So basically, talking about DreamWorks, for example. So they have the resources, and how do they leverage the resources to become more profitable and to become better from the others and having secure a better market share? All right. So let's go into resource-based view. So resource-based view basically is an approach to talking about achieving competitive advantage. This is in business, we can say it is an old theory. Yeah, it started in 1980s. Yeah, and then and it started with several major works published by Weidenfeld, Prahalat and Hamin, and Barney. So Barney was the triggering article, a triggering work that really bridge, between resource-based view and dynamic capabilities. All right. So from what resource-based view basically do is they focus on the internal of the organization. So the perspective is saying that, you should use your strength, resources, in order you capitalize on the resources, capabilities, competencies that you have in order to outperform the others. Yeah. So you have to understand, you have to identify what are actually your capabilities, resources, and competencies, and you can use many approach. You reconfigure, you capitalize on it, you combine, you package it in order for you to create new things that are unique and that cannot be copied by other companies. Yeah. So the supporters of this view argue that organizations should look inside the company to find the sources of competitive advantage instead of looking at competitive environment, because competitive environment is something that you cannot control. For example, political system, policies, natural disaster, all these are external to the organization and you cannot control this. Things happen, but you have to use your internal competencies, internal resources in order to overcome the challenges. For example, what happened during pandemic COVID-19, right? We cannot control what is happening outside. And because of the traveling, because of the globalization, it spread very fast from one region to another region. All right. So you are just waiting for the pandemic to arrive to your country or to your region, right? So you cannot control that, right? Although the government do some kind of restriction, traveling restriction, and they do the, You cannot go out, yeah. You cannot. Everybody cannot have to stop travel and whatnot. But it affects your business, and you have to use your resources. You have to use your capabilities in order to overcome this challenge. That's why you see during the after the COVID-19, there are companies who fell out or become bankrupt. They got out of the system, yeah, out of business. Okay, but there are also companies who are still flourishing, and sometimes there are also new companies that come into the system and make more money, right? So here, what the resource-based view said is that resources is superior, yeah, will lead to superior performance. So the assumption here is that the resources must be idiosyncratic, and it must not be identical, yeah, non-identical strategic resources in order for you to create competitive advantage. Because if the resources is common, yeah, any company can have that, then it will not give you any competitive advantage. For example, talking about human resource, this company have 100 people, your company have 100 people. In terms of energy, in terms of working hours, similar, right? However, in terms of quality of the people, these 100 people are more resourceful, they are more innovative, they have the skills, they are very adaptive, they can learn very fast. So the differentiation of the resources might lead to this company performing better than the other company. All right. So when we talk about types of resources, we can classify it into two categories: tangible resources and intangible resources. Okay, so for tangible resources, this is quite common. Yeah, you have financial resources, physical resources, technological resources, and organizational resources. So the theory, it holds. Now, these are the common resources of a company. However, the component change through time. Yeah, for example, when you talk about physical resources, so now you're talking about modern plant capacity, you're talking about automation, you're talking about robotics, you're talking about AI, you're talking about smart building. Okay, so the physical resources change, right? And then we talk about technological resources. Of course, now we're talking about trade secrets, patents, copyrights, innovative processes. Yeah, this is why the system, the information system. So these are all technological resources. Yeah, and then when you talk about organizational resources, yeah, how you plan your strategy, how you assess your system, how you assess your performance, and also quality control. These are tangible resources. Now, the issue about tangible resources is that tangible resources can easily be bought in the market, so they can confer little advantage to the companies in the long run, because rivals can soon acquire the identical assets. For example, just now when I said that, okay, this company has more competitive advantage right now because they have robotics, they have smart factory, yeah? But in due time, other companies can also follow, and they can build their capacity, they can build their capabilities by installing robotics, by having smart factory. So it can be created, right? It can be copied, all right? Now, another component is what we call as intangible resources, all right? So intangible resources, yeah, everything else that has no physical presence but can still be owned by the company. But these intangible resources requires time. Yeah, you have to develop it over time. And when it is developed over time, it cannot be easily bought from the market. Okay. All right. So for example, human resource. Okay. Human resource, we can say it is as tangible, but the most important component is the intangible elements of human resource. For example, knowledge, experience, capabilities, specific practices, culture. So these are intangible resources. Yeah, for example, if you look at Google, the working culture give them more advantage. yeah, how they create innovative ambience within the company. All right. So that is something that people cannot copy. All right. Innovation and creativity, technical skills, scientific skills, innovation capacities. So these are all intangible resources. And these can be leveraged in order to make difference or differentiation to the company's products, to the company processes, to the company strategy. All right. And of course, another one is reputation, image of the company, outstanding customers, profile of your customers is also are also important. All right. For example, big companies become your customers. This is something that cannot be bought by other companies in very fast. It requires experience. It requires what you call it, testimonials and track record in order for you to become big customers to be on board of your product and services. All right. So reputation building takes time and cannot be easily copied. All right. Next, let's talk about characteristic of resources. Okay. So the essential conditions that resources and capabilities of the firm in generating sustained competitive advantage, it must have what we call as resource heterogeneity and also immobility. Okay. So if they have certain characteristics, so it becomes difficult for people to copy very fast. Right? So that you can be able to sustain the advantage that you have. That's why it is called sustained competitive advantage. Okay, so resource heterogeneity, meaning here is that skills, capabilities, and other resources that organizations possess differ from one company to another. Yeah, for example, if we look at Tesla, the unique thing about Tesla is that they have the biggest chunk of their employees are software engineers. And these software engineers keep on modifying, keep on making their software better, because software is a very important or critical component in electric cars. So people rely a lot on the software. All right. So therefore, these create competitive advantage for Tesla. So when people talk about electric cars, they automatically remember Tesla. Yeah. Because in the customer's mind, Tesla has a better system than other electric cars. All right. And then companies achieve competitive advantage by using their different bundles of resources. So how you create, uniqueness from combination of resources. Yeah. For example, if you look at DreamWorks, right? So how do they create, their expertise in animation, their copyrights, and they create products. And this product has great impact to the entertainment industry, and it can be continued from one type of product to another type of product. And if you look at from comic, as I mentioned last week, from comic into cartoons, from cartoons it becomes animation movies, and then it becomes merchandising, and then it becomes other things, series and whatnot. So these are all how you bundle your resources. All right. And then immobility. Resources are not mobile and do not move from one company to another company, at least in the short run. So companies cannot replicate rivals' resources and implement the same strategies. So you have to create the resources so that it will not be easily transferred to another company. Okay. So for example, brand equity, processes, knowledge, IPs. Yeah, these are usually immobile. So it will give you prolonged advantage for the companies, and you can capitalize on this for a longer period of time. But however, that's why companies need to continuously improve themselves so that they can prolong the age of the resources. All right. So what are the characteristics of resources? Basically, they must be valuable, rare, inimitability, and another one is organization. This is what we call the VRIO model. Yeah, VRIO model. V for valuable, R for rare, I for inimitability, and O for organization. What do we mean by valuable? Is resources are valuable if they help organization to increase the value offered to the customers. And these resources cannot be common. Okay, so they can create resources. For example, if you are in the service industry, you have a good customer service. So this becomes a valuable resources because you can increase the value that you offer to the customers. All right. Rare resources that can only be acquired by one or few companies are considered rare. Yeah, it can be physical resources. Yeah, for example, companies that have control over the supplies. Oh, sorry, companies that control over the supplies. Yeah, it can be also taken advantage. In terms of what is the resources that you have. Yeah. And then in terms of inimitability, resources that are costly to imitate or to substitute for by arrival. Yeah. So for example, you have robotics, right? You have AI placed in your system. And for companies to imitate, having all this machine learning and whatnot in their organization is very costly. So they cannot go to that extent. So this is also constituted as good resources. Yeah. And finally, is organization. The resources itself do not confer any advantage for a company if it's not organized to capture the value from that. So combination, recombination, reconfiguration. Yeah. And when you combine the resources, then only they can exploit the valuable, rare, and immutable resources. So the ability of the company to combine the resources and create competitive advantage, this is also considered as good resources. All right. So when we talk about valuable, so basically when you have valuable resources, so it neutralizes the threats and also you can exploit the opportunities using your valuable resources. Rare, meaning not many firms possess the resources, so you are at the advantage so that you can gain more control of the market share. All right. And inimitability, physically unique, path dependency, meaning, for example, track record, causal ambiguity, social complexity, and non-equivalent, meaning that people, in order for them to imitate, they require track record, they require experience, or the combination is very ambiguous. You cannot directly copy it from them. Yeah. And also, for example, social complexity, for example, culture, as I mentioned just now, the culture itself, the culture placed in the organization creates innovativeness and creativity. So it is something that you cannot copy the culture because culture, it needs inculcation, it needs to be instilled to the employees, then only it can be capitalized. So this is something that's also inimitable to other organizations. All right. And finally is organization. The resources are organized and bundled and rebundled to produce greater values. So this is what companies often do. Yeah? For example, if you look at Apple, you see how it builds the ecosystem, from just computer software and then goes into communication, phones, and then it goes into entertainment, music, and then it goes into content, right? So these are all organization, how it packaged the product and services so that people cannot move from one platform to another platform, or people become restricted or unwilling to move to another product offerings. All right. So basically, the antecedents of sustained competitive advantage is the basic premise is resource heterogeneity and resource immobility, and therefore the conditions of the resources, they have to have this characteristic, value, rareness, imperfect imitability, and organization. Then only you can have sustained competitive advantage. All right. Okay. So I guess we stop here for this video. All right. So in next video, I will share with you another component is about industrial organization theory. All right. So thank you very much.